Welcome to the Home Building Hub, your essential podcast guide to building your new home. Hosted by industry experts Colin Bischoff and Darren Brennan, this conversational podcast will help better educate you about all things new home building so you can avoid costly mistakes and enjoy your building experience to the fullest, no matter which home builder you choose.
G'day folks, welcome to the Home Building Hub. You're with Colin and co-host Darren Brennan as always. And today, Daz, we are going to highlight three things that people often, in fact, nearly always overlook when buying a block of land. And we're going to try and save them what could be thousands in doing so. So it's really important. We've been in this industry a long time, Daz, and we see the same thing when we started, and we still see the same thing today, many years later. So we're trying to help you out. If you are buying a block of land, thinking about house and land, all that sort of stuff, then listen to this. It won't be too long, but it will highlight three things that you absolutely must take into consideration and execute from your end. Because as I said, we see so many people make this mistake, and we're going to reveal those three things for you. So how you going, Daz?
Going well, mate. Yeah, really well. Obviously, the weather's changed, mate. It's a bit cooler. You've got the hoodie on. I've braved it with just a tee on this morning, but I'm somewhat regretting my decision. But we'll be right. It's very much headed into autumn now, and it's a great time of the year, mate. And footy's back. All the things that we like are back on, and there's a lot going on, mate. And I think even since the interest rate drop, there's been a bit more activity, which is great. So, I know we've had a really good month where I work, which is fantastic, and things feel like they're heading in the right direction. So if you're thinking about buying a home, you're right in the sweet spot of that time to do it, I reckon, right now. So, yeah, head out and have a look at the displays, talk to your builder consultants, get on REA or any of those platforms and start doing your searching, etc. And reach out if we can help you as well. So we're going to touch on three of the absolute key items that we've seen missed over and over again, Cole. But I also wanted to mention three people that you should put in your camp to make sure that you have a great journey the whole way through as well. So we're not just talking about items, we're talking about people. Those three people I'm going to suggest is a great broker, you want a great conveyancer, and you also want to have a great consultant from a builder's perspective looking after you. So if you've got those three in your camp, you're set up really well. And then they'll make sure the items like we're about to talk about you don't miss, and that will save you thousands and thousands of dollars. So, yeah.
Yep.
Maybe you kick off the first one, mate.
Yeah, so that team with experience in new home construction, that is the key, because there's a lot of brokers who do established but not construction, and there's a bit of a difference, so important. The number one thing that we'd like to add is, or suggest for you to add, is identifying survey pegs to be in place at settlement. So basically, let's assume you've got a regular block that you're looking at. There are 4 pegs, one in each corner, that identify where that boundary is. And essentially there's this peg on top, or a stake on top, but underneath that is a peg that is in the ground that identifies that. Quite often through someone building next door or whatever, they get dug up or they go missing or whatever. So you need to make sure that when you sign a land contract, your conveyancer puts in a clause that says that all the pegs are present at the time of settlement. And in the event that they are not, then what you can do is the vendor, could be developer, whatever, the landowner, whatever, they would have to pay for what's called a re-establishment survey. That ranges from, $800 to $1,200 roughly, depending on your builder. And that is something that would then have someone come out and re-establish those boundaries and put those pegs in and make sure that everyone knows where your boundary line sits. So that's number one, Darren. That's a very important one to add to your land contract as a clause.
The other part is one, it saves you the money on the actual test, them coming out and actually doing the measurements, etc., and re-establishing your boundaries. But also, you have issues where if you don't do that and then your house is built over the boundary slightly, or your neighbour that's already built onto your property already, they're the big ones. Like the cost of the re-establishment survey is cheap. If you build on the neighbour's property because you didn't do it and you tried to skimp out of that, and your builder might have said, just sign a disclaimer and it'll be all on you. Well, you don't want that all on you. You want to make
No.
sure it's right. So
No, and that's the reason too. It saves a bit of time. Like when the builder goes out, takes your job file, and they go out and they realise, oh, we don't have all the boundary pegs, so it can delay your process as well. So that's number
yeah,
one.
indeed. Number two, I guess make sure your block's clear of debris, rubbish, contamination. And what do we mean by that? One, if your block's there and you already own it and it's got rubbish all over it, you're gonna have to clear that up. So, one of our recent episodes was exactly about that. So getting either yourself to come and do it if you can, or someone to come in and clear that block up. You're gonna have to mow the block, get all the weeds and grass down nice and low so that the builder's ready to go. But also, if you don't own the block already and you're looking at buying the block, you want to put a clause into your contract that says that that block will be clear of all rubbish, debris, etc., prior to settlement, so that you can duck out there the day before you're settling the block of land and see that it's all been cleared for you. There's no issues there whatsoever, and again, it's going to save you a lot of money. Could be $2,000-3,000 to clear a block. The other part with having your block clear, number one is if your block's clear already, for some reason, people don't dump rubbish where on a clear block usually. They go to a block that's already got rubbish on it and they just keep dumping and dumping and dumping. So the clearer you can keep your block, the better. If necessary, put up some temporary fencing. You may need to hire that around the front of your block or around the whole block to prevent people getting access to be able to dump onto your block. And it's a terrible part of this industry. It's disgraceful what happens, Colin, with rubbish ending up on blocks and people thinking that any place is a dumping ground. Once the houses are all built and established, they're not dumping it in your front yard, right? And also if there's houses around you, there's less likely to be massive dumps of rubbish. But it could also be your neighbour gets their landscaping supplies dumped on your block that's now contaminating that lot. So it's just having those conversations, understanding where that's at. But where possible, put a clause into your contract to say the block's got to be clear of rubbish, contamination, etc., and cleanly scraped or mowed prior to settlement.
Hmm. Yeah, scraped
So,
is a key term, isn't it, that we learnt with our chats with Brett from Clear My Block. It's not just getting someone off Airtasker and lifting things off the ground, it's scraping it so they're contaminated, like the little bits of wire and little bits of concrete and whatever, that's all got to go because that can contaminate the soil. So um, that's very, very helpful. The only thing I'd add to that, Darren, is one of the things that I actually did this last week when I went to a handover and we looked at a couple of other blocks for a client. Drive around the estate before you buy that block. And if it's an estate that hasn't got titled land yet, go to the stage that does next door and you'll see the condition of the sites in general and whether it's an area that people are prone to dump rubbish or not. Because one of the things we learned is that it's not all areas that have rubbish dumped on them all the time. Brett from Clear My Blocks said to us that he's from South Australia. I think he said after our episode, he's from South Australia. He went back home to potentially expand into that market, and he realised it was pretty much minimal to no dumping of rubbish. So, whereas in Melbourne, Metro West, Metro North are heavily dumped sites of rubbish and
yeah,
stuff everywhere, and so you just be mindful of, I guess, geographically where you're at. We can't speak for other states. So what I'm saying is what will work is drive around, see the next stage, see the condition. If it's pretty clean, then you probably don't have too much to worry about, but just something to be mindful of. So, but either any which way you look at it, make sure you get that clause put in your land contract because it gives you a good starting point, a clean block to begin with. Okay, so really important.
absolutely. What's number three, mate?
Number three, yeah. So this is perhaps not about a clause to add to a land contract, but what it is something. And even just this week, Darren, we had a client who refused to listen to us and went against our advice in terms of orientation. So number three is make sure you're considering orientation before purchasing. Now, I don't mean there's a lot of cultural beliefs that a certain orientation that has to be that way. A block or a house has to face certain orientation due to their beliefs. I'm not actually talking about that. I'm talking about the practicality of orientation in terms of daylight coming through your living areas during the day. Now, there's one example, and geez, there might be hundreds of them over our careers, Darren, but if you have a block of land, it's going to face a direction, obviously, but you need to understand what side that crossover, as in the driveway, is on, and what side the garage is going to be on, and which we've covered before. But basically, you want to work out, and this is why you need a good building sales consultant. You want to work out, should my living areas be behind my garage, or should they be on the opposite of the garage? Is the easiest way for me to explain it for people, so they can really easily and understand it in a way that they can comprehend when they're out there jumping on websites and looking for floor plans, right? So then you go, okay, opposite garage or behind garage, because that, where your north point is matters. So I see this over and over again, and people pick a plan, they pick a block, or they do it the other way around, and they make that mistake, and they buy a block of land that doesn't suit the plan, or or vice versa, basically. So it's really important to consider both at the same time. It's one of the biggest mistakes. Now, before the regulation changes mid last year, Darren, it probably didn't impact pricing too much for someone to make, the wrong decision in my mind and put their living areas, on the south side in terms of, the side that doesn't get the sunlight, let's say,
Yeah.
as opposed to the side that does. That's their call. It's their house. If they want to live, in their living areas in a dark format, your call, no worries. But since the new regulations have come through, it now can impact your price, because if we need to hit 7-star energy rating, compliance, and in order to do that, it's actually more important now than ever to make sure that those living areas are getting the right amount of natural light through. So if you're telling us to put your living areas opposite to that, it actually, you could be hit up with more money to beef up the house to actually achieve 7-star energy rating with additional this and additional that, insulation or double glazing and all these sorts of additions. So it can cost you thousands just by doing that. What else you got on that one, Darren?
Oh, it's funny. I was just out at a display home that we're building at the moment on Friday afternoon, and one thing that I think is also not often considered, although the um, living areas were on the northern side, it was actually sloping uphill on that side. And there was a 1 meter high retaining wall, and then the fence on top of the retaining wall. So there was a 2.8 meter high wall, 1.2 meters off that window. And it was really dark, although it was on the northern side. Like, it was unusual. Normally, like, oh, it's on the north, it'll be great. You're looking on the
Mm,
plan. But looking at it now, also you got to take into consideration the fall of the land. Is it a double story next door that's going to shelter that living space as well? Has the same problem.
yeah,
So understanding what's being built around you, the fall of the land, are the retaining walls, is the fence going to have to sit up above the retaining wall, etc., are all going to impact that exact outcome. So and again, doesn't necessarily impact the energy rating as such, but it certainly impacts the livability of the home.
does massively. Yep.
And yeah, a 2.8 meter high, as your fence is 1.8 plus the 1 meter high retaining wall right outside this window. Yeah, it was surprisingly dark in what should have been a well lit room.
Yep.
So, you want to be mindful of what that looks like, and we're now going to put, naturally it's a display. There'll be plenty of downlights in there. They'll be on all day. You won't really notice, but if we didn't, you'd certainly notice.
Mm,
So it's
yep.
quite a dark house now in what should be quite a light house.
Yep. Yeah, and sometimes you roll the dice because you buy new land that doesn't have any construction on it yet, then you don't know what your neighbour's building, So
True, true, true.
unfortunately, it's luck of the draw
But
to
but
some
fall
degree.
does impact that a lot. So if you've got a sloping block, understand if there's going to be retaining walls, fences will be on top of those walls
Mm,
often. So what does that look like? How's that going to impact your home? Talk to your building consultant. If they're not sure, you can always reach out to us. We're always here to help as well.
yep. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's why you need a good team. So, yeah, we've helped a few clients along the way so far, Darren, haven't we? Which is good. And none of those clients are building with us. We've just given some time, we've helped them out, and they've gone on their merry way. They've actually been interstate for the most part. So, all good. Well, that's helpful, I believe, Darren. So thanks, guys, for watching and listening. If you like what you're sort of seeing and hearing here, please jump on, leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. A lot of people do listen, but not many get on the review button, Darren. So please, it takes 2 seconds, hit the 5 stars,
Absolutely.
get the podcast promoted out there to people who are not aware of it. That'd be helpful. Any questions, topic ideas, guys, jump on the website, or you can send us an email, hello@homebuildinghub.com.au. Other than that, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Home Building Hub. As part of the podcast, we have to be a little careful to cover ourselves on a legal standpoint. So we do have a disclaimer. Whilst we're all about providing value to you, this podcast should not be considered legal or financial advice. It does contain general information only, and you should seek out independent professional advice on your own personal situation before you make any legal or financial decisions. 1, 2